The Cavalry arrived last night here in Orlando for New York City FC. Is a former New York City coach a candidate for the U.S. men's national team? And Major League Soccer, budget rules. How will it impact City and the rest of the league? We are live from Orlando, Florida on NYCFC Views.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Gonna be sick and live, and that's Roberto Abramowitz. I'm Glenn Crooks, New York City FC Network. Roberto is typing. We can hear that heavily right now. What are you doing?
I'm sending you a message.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm getting a message. Well, you know what? The other message is we have to retweet this. So, this is bad.
Now that we're back live on Twitter.
This is bad on me. Thanks very much.
On Twitter, but that's about it.
We thank Sick Pod Podcast Associates very much because they have elected to purchase the premium on Twitter, which gives us the opportunity. I'm reposting right now, and we're hoping the New York City FC Football Club might push this out as well. Anybody out there that feels like you could help us to push out our live NYCFC views, please do so. And we have this privilege of being on the road with the New York City Football Club. It's a very, very cool gig. Not only just calling games live, which is absolutely, stimulating and invigorating and all these great things if you're a sportsman, and especially on the soccer side. So we're really happy about that. But then we get to travel, and now we went right directly from Atlanta to Orlando. So what that meant is that we had an extra day in essence, where we normally don't have that day. So what we do is we gather in my hotel room. Here's the radio crew after about 100 beers. Look at that. Everybody looks pretty sober. No, this is
actually 2 glasses of wine. I just want to be able to put that out there as opposed to beer. Nobody will ever believe you that I drank beer.
This is the not everybody in the world knows you, Roberto, but now we have made it clear to the NYC Views world that that you don't drink beer. But we just had
you didn't know, maybe, and all the people that followed me from when I worked at ESPN, and all my the people who followed me, especially in Latin America, knew that I didn't like chocolate, that I don't eat chocolate. And my broadcast partner for Eduardo Varela from Sunday Night Football would not ever believe the fact that I didn't like chocolate. But, and so people knew about that, and, they had fun with it, which is fine. I can take it. Take it.
Okay. Excellent. And, anyway, it was nice to get together like we did, and we had a nice dinner, and, we generally dine together, but so we had that extra day. So, and the team also had the extra day. So right to my left, as you know, Roberto, and you have it right outside your window, we just happen to have these rooms I've got a Latin festival going on to my left here, just outside.
I can hear the bass drum. That's all I can hear. We both face the pool from different angles, but I can definitely hear the bass drum.
Yeah. So,
and I want to get back out there before happy hour ends at 6. So
okay. Well, that ain't gonna happen. But maybe it will. We'll see what we can do. But let's get to the soccer because, it's just about time to go on this break for the Leagues Cup and also the MLS All-Star Game, where Thiago Martins will represent the club. But Atlanta United. So that's the last game. So you're coming off 2 losses on the road in this 4-game road swing, and it was really as Nick Cushing put it, a 3-point draw, and there's no other way to look at it. We've all been a part of those games, Roberto, where you're up and then somebody ties late, and it feels like a loss if that's what happens. Yeah. But if you're on the other side of it, it feels like a win, and that certainly was was the case here, down 2-0, right?
I think there's two ways to look at it. Yeah, that's definitely one. And especially for the fact that the team played what I thought was basically poorly in the first half, especially because the goals that they wound up conceding, although there were stretches where they had good possession and, but they didn't really look dangerous while having that possession. They didn't create a hell of a lot. But they went down 2-0, and for their first time in history that they've trailed by multiple goals at halftime, that they've come back and got a point, which I thought was an extraordinary stat. So they've trailed 2-0 before, but never as late as halftime, and then they came back and got a point on the road, which I think is important. But when you look at the game from the perspective of who Atlanta United had out there and who wasn't there anymore, and no more Giacomides and no more Thiago Almada, and other players were absent as well, you would go in thinking this is a really good chance to get 3 points on the road, especially since New York City has not lost to Atlanta since 2019 in any venue. But then the way the game starts, they allow the goal in 21 seconds, everybody pretty much asleep on defense. And then they allow a second goal off a bad rebound and, not getting to the ball first after the rebound. They go down 2-0. That doesn't sound good. But then the way they reacted in the second half and was able to get the tie, and you love to see Monsef Bakrar, jump on a bad pass and go and put it in the back of the net. Tylus Magno force the defense to foul him to get a penalty, and then wanting the ball. And that I really love this from Tylus. He wanted the ball. Maxi picked it up. Tylus, he gave it to him. Tylus wanted it, and he went and he scored. I think that's really key. I think it's important. And I like the way the team celebrated the goal after he scored. And we spoke to Monsef about that, based on a question that you asked in the press conference. And I think that all of these things are really important of how tight this team actually is. A young team, and it's the youngest team in MLS. So I think that part is really, really positive. At the end of the day, it's, and I agree with Nick, it's a 3-point tie.
And then we had so here's what we spoke to Nick and Monsef today. A little later on, we're going to play David Lee too from our interview with him less than 2 weeks ago, Roberto, because he talks about Magno. So we'll be playing that in a moment. But he also talks about the new MLS budget rules, which have officially now taken effect. We knew what they were going to be, but MLS has announced it ahead of the opening of the transfer window. And well, as far as Bakrar's goal, his third of the season, wonderful finish off an Atlanta. It came from nowhere, it came from nothing, but it was a matter of Atlanta giving it away, and that often will harm you if you give the ball away in that part of the field. And then the Magno equalizer on the PK, you're absolutely right. So we've got both English and Spanish. Just to give you an example of our commentary on the New York City FC network, first, let's play the English with myself and Maddie, and then the Spanish with Roberto and Ariel on the Magno drawing the penalty and then converting the penalty.
Here's Maxi Morales taken down from behind. No call from the referee.
That's a penalty.
Now Magno goes in, and it is a penalty. Magno draws a penalty, and he gets up and he waves his palms high into the sky. Adulation, Tylus Magno, his first minute since February 24th, and this penalty may earn a point on the road. Backs up with his heels on the top of the penalty area as he approaches the spot kick from 12. And he finishes it past Guzan. And Tylus Magno, what a return to the lineup for the Brazilian Magno. 6 minutes in the opener against Charlotte, not a single moment since. And in game number 24, he comes off the bench and he levels the game for New York City. He draws the penalty and then finishes from the spot.
And now Spanish.
Nicely done, sir.
Morales se va al área, lo empujan por atrás, dice el árbitro adelante, y ahora Tylus Magno, penalty, penalty para New York City. Y ahora Santi Rodríguez, que es el que normalmente toma los penaltis, está escuchando este partido en casa. Entonces, veremos quién lo toma por New York City. Morales podría ser. Tyler Magno tiene el balón por este momento. Y yo imagino que Magno lo quiere. El público abucheando. Magno toma carrera. Guzán levanta los brazos. Magno tira. ¡Gol! De New York City. Estamos empatados 2-2. New York City ha venido de atrás.
His last goal was September 20th, 2023 against Orlando, the opponent tomorrow night, in a 2-0 win at Yankee
Against Orlando.
Yeah. Huh? I just said that.
Against Orlando.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
I'm not sure. We're having a little. Our Wi-Fi is a little shaky, perhaps, Roberto.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm like quitting out of everything that's not pertinent right now, and hoping that will be enough to get us through here.
I'm fine. I don't know why.
Oh, well, that's very nice. I'm very
I'm in
happy
the,
that you're doing great.
Well, I'm in the part of the hotel apparently that's closer to the router or something. I don't know. But anyway, the whole Magno thing is, I've got Nick Cushing. So that's an obvious question to ask about Magno. And this is from the pregame presser. Well, forgive me. This is from my my interview with him that will be on the pregame show tomorrow night at 7:15 Eastern. Nick Cushing last week we talked about Hack, and this week it's got to be Tyler Magno. Here he is.
It's Tyler Magno. Plays his first game since the opener on February 24th. Draws a penalty, converts the penalty, and so tell us a little bit about what you thought of Magno and the fact that he took the ball and wanted that kick.
Well, I think first and foremost, it's I've said before in my press, and I know when you have a guy like Tellez that isn't in the team, maybe not in squads, there can be a perception that there's something there, whether it be between me and Tellez, between Tellez and the club. But ultimately, it's really simple. We have a roster that is really competitive. I believe you have to have that to be successful in MLS. Look at the injuries we have now, the schedule, the climates, the travel. And ultimately, Tellez was really unlucky to get the injury that he got at the start of the season, and he's had to be patient to get his moment, right? But I fully trust that Tellez can produce for this football team on both sides of our game, defensively and offensively, and his moment came in the game. I actually felt before the game it was a real game that would suit Tellez, so there was a plan to put him into the game before. He wins the penalty because of the level of play that he is, and Santi Rodriguez is our penalty taker, but when he's off the field, Tellez is super clinical in penalties, and when he picked the ball up, I was 100% confident he was going to score. I understand players can miss, but Tellez is so calm and clinical in those moments. And
Tellez hasn't missed. 3 for 3 now in his MLS career. So there's Nick Cushing regarding Tyler Magno. I think when you look at one of the things that we know is that there were 5 players that have returned that were not in Atlanta that are now in Orlando. 2 of them, their status is uncertain, but we do know that Thiago Martins, Santi Rodriguez, and James Sands are all available and are likely to be in the starting 11. I think that's pretty certain. And then there's Tavon Gray and Kevin O'Toole. Gray might be a little bit more ahead of O'Toole, both recovering from hamstrings, training tonight, and that's where everything's going to be decided after training. So the question is, and 2 of the Baby Blues return to play for MLS Next Pro and New York City FC 2 tonight. They host Philadelphia Belson. So Maximo Carrizo, who was in Atlanta, and Piero Elias, who made his MLS debut. Yeah, they're both back ready to play for the 2 team tonight. Drew Baera, homegrown, who was also here in Atlanta, has stayed in Orlando because of the fullback situation, the question marks there, Roberto. So it's a lot of moving parts here, but somebody has to be left off this roster. The way I'm calculating it, it's either 1 or 2 people that are here. Now, I'm only bringing it up because Magno was not in the team for 4 straight games, then was an unused substitute
Yeah.
too. And Nick said before the game to me, I can't remember if it's to us or to me, that he said Magno's getting
To
in
us.
today. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But that's the way Nick saw it, and he said it in the clip there as well. So you wonder if he thinks Orlando's the kind of game where he can contribute. But that's a decision they got to make. Who's not in the squad tomorrow.
What I liked about Magno, aside from the fact that he scored, was that he looked very, very lively. He looked very different than the 6 minutes that he played in the first game of the season, and then had to go back on the injury list. He looked very lively, looked spry. He also was very aggressive. He wanted the ball. You could see that he had that mentality, is that I have my chance. I'm going to take my chance to the best of my ability. He wasn't going to go and, fade into the background or anything. No, he was going to be on the front foot. I really like that about him.
Yeah, no, he was. He helped make a difference, as did Bakrar, as did Maximo Morales, who comes in at halftime. So just one substitution at halftime. We were contemplating there might be 2 or 3 moves that might be made, but the Nick opted only for Maximo Morales. And the Magno thing is, it's been a bit of a mystery. Remember though, we questioned David Lee, and he was pretty upfront about the fact that he understood Magno's not happy about playing. Well, let him say exactly how he responded in our exclusive interview a couple of weeks back, Roberto, which was played in full here on the Sick Podcast, NYCFC Views. But this, again, about Tylus Magno, sporting director David Lee.
Clear and obvious that he wants to play more. And so, as we enter into the transfer window, I think that's something that we'll look at. We will, if we receive any offers, we'll look at it. But anything that we do has to make sense for us from a roster perspective. It also has to make sense for Tales. And so, Tales is a player that we've invested money in, and we want to see him perform and grow. And so we're not going to simply just accept any opportunity that might arise. We've got to make sure we believe it's the right one for Tales and for us. And so as of now, we haven't had any offers, formal offers that have been put on the table. But as we get those, we'll pursue it and we'll look at it. And if it can make sense for both parties, then potentially there might be an exit. But that's not the case today. That's not the case. I don't think that's the case tomorrow. And so I think that the reality is, Tales' focus right now is on trying to earn as many minutes as he can in our first team.
Well, did he earn more minutes by what he did in the last match, Roberto? And I think that's a viable question.
How do you? I would definitely think so.
That's all you have to say about it? You're normally...
No, that you asked me a question. Did he earn enough minutes? Did he do enough to earn enough minutes? And
okay.
Yes.
Well, all right. Yes, he did. Okay, so
you asked a direct question. I gave you a direct answer.
No, I think my feeling is that he can contribute in this. There'd be a decision where he can contribute, but I will say this: if he's left out of the squad in this game, you'd really have to assume something's up. I mean, because a guy coming off a performance like that, which is only, it's a minor performance, but it had big results. He didn't play many minutes, so it's not like he's, maybe fit to contribute an entire half of football, or I don't even know, can he play 30 minutes? I would imagine he's got to be fit. He's coming off this knee. I don't know if you've noticed. Yeah, but I don't know if you've noticed, but he's been wearing pretty consistently a big wrap on his knee, on his left knee. I don't know if you've noticed. Sometimes at training, sometimes in warm-ups for games. So I don't know if it still might be bothering him. I don't know. I'm just saying he's got this big wrap on quite often. So I'm going to ask you, we're live here. Can you hear what I'm saying, or are you being frozen on your end?
It keeps on breaking up. It keeps on breaking up on my end. But Shane says that everything's coming out fine.
All right.
So
well, I wish I could
Shane,
do something
our
too.
producer,
but yes.
up in Montreal.
Well, we'll carry on. It's just
now you're lost.
Well, it's very disjointed, it's very disjointed, somewhat like the New York City
It's
attack
like
has
the first
been,
half of the game in Atlanta.
recent road games. Say what?
I said it's just like the first half in Atlanta.
Yes, it's just like the first half in Atlanta. I'm going to suggest. No, we're
So
live,
obviously
but
we're having issues, and
we're not going
everybody.
to be able to converse. So why don't you go out and come back in? I don't know what else to even suggest. And then I've got a couple of things I could say and play here while you're away. I don't know. You want to do that or not?
Go right ahead and let me see if it's me, because it just might be both of us, because the hotel Wi-Fi isn't exactly fantastic today. So let me go out, and I will come back. I promise. That's a threat. I will be back.
All right. Come on back. And Shane, put a note in the notes, please, to just to indicate whether I'm coming through clearly or not. So once again, it's live, NYCFC Views. If you catch us live, or sometimes you catch us at other times, we do get this replayed again on the Sick Podcast, and that's at SickPod NYCFC. We'll retweet the thing, and anytime you can support the channel and what we're doing, that would be great. I do want to say that I'm wearing this hood. You probably have never seen this before. Okay, so this is a new hoodie, and it's from a group called Homage, Homage. We're going to have more information about that next week, but we're also going to give you the information. I think Roberto might have even put it out on his X account today, that you can actually order some. There's several pieces of NYCFC gear, and I could just tell you, we were given a few things, and I love this hoodie because here's what happens. You're in Orlando, it's 1 billion degrees outside, but then you go in anywhere and it's freezing. I know you've all encountered this. And so it's great to have like a long sleeve hoodie, because it's freezing here in the hotel. But we got the hoodie, got short sleeves, you got some shorts and stuff. So we're going to give you some information, I'm told, next week here on NYCFC Views to fill you in as we approach this Leagues Cup break. And the Leagues Cup begins July 28th for New York City, hosting Querétaro, and then playing at FC Cincinnati on August the 5th. So those are all upcoming. One other thing I wanted to play from Nick, and I thought I wanted to ask the question that leaving Santi Rodriguez and Thiago Martins home in particular, they didn't have necessarily anything major going on from an injury standpoint. It was just more of a load situation. But I asked him about those two, Santi in particular, and then he remember that there have been some soft tissue injuries, consecutive games where players have left early. It's Andres Perea at Chicago. He's still out, and it could be extended period of time that Perea will be out of the lineup. Then it was Tavon Gray in the previous game at Austin, Maxi Morales at home versus Montreal. Those injuries all occurred with 22 minutes of the first 22 minutes of the game. So part of the pregame show, Nick Cushing, coming up at 7:15. Here's Nick on the injuries.
Rodriguez has played a lot of minutes, and I wanted to try and get to post Orlando to give him the ability to rest. And I think when you have so many soft tissue injuries and you're experiencing them in the first parts of the game, we lost Andres Perea, who's a key player for us, so there was no room for losing anybody else. So I made a conscious decision to just take him out of the Atlanta game, knowing that he would be fresher and in a better physical condition going into Orlando.
Yeah, I suppose there's a certain frustration with all these injuries early on in the match, but it is a delicate balance, right? Because we know, and we've talked about the analytics and the science versus the instinct and the intuition. So, but losing players to soft tissue injuries, sometimes that could be prevented, sometimes it can't. I don't know. How do you see it?
Well, it 100% is preventable. I have a really strong head of performance in David Howarth, and he leads the performance department. And we've had some really honest conversations over the last 2-3 weeks, and he takes, I don't think it's his responsibility, but he takes full responsibility and tells me that he can, his responsibility is to develop the training program where we don't get soft tissue injuries. But, it's natural with a young team, a change in style, a real desire to be an aggressive team. You're going to get little nicks along the way. And I do think the pleasing part of having these injuries at the rate that they are is that they're not serious injuries. Andres Pereira is one that is probably longer than we want, but Tavon, Kevin, Thiago, those guys, they're only missing 4 or 5 days and one game at a time.
All right, so you get an indication about Pereira, then we're still waiting for the club to maybe give us an idea of how long he'll be out, but we haven't heard yet. But we do know that Justin Hack came in and filled in more than admirably, I think. And but the expectation is you'll see Sands, Parks, and Rodriguez tomorrow against Orlando, right?
Yeah, that's what it sounded like that was going to happen. So, the cavalry's back, as you said. So we expect them to be able to be in the starting lineup unless something happens this evening, because they start training at what time? 7 o'clock, so in an hour and a half. So it's the second time that they've done this. They avoided the heat in Austin, or at least the heavy heat in Austin, by doing this, and they're doing the same thing here in Orlando. So, and also it mimics what the temperature is going to feel like at the time of the game. And I don't think it's going to be a very strenuous practice either, because I mean the whole team is just really tired. All these games, all these minutes that the team is accumulating, and you mentioned the injuries. These things are happening, and you've got to be able to protect them. So, I think that it behooves them to, sort of be gentle on the players on the day before a game.
Right. So the Orlando playing host to New York City tomorrow. Let's kick it around. We'll go through a few more things, but because of transmission issues, we're going to probably close this thing a little earlier. But let's kick it around, Shane. So the MLS budget rules, Roberto, I guess the best way to describe this is you could either have 3 DPs plus 3 U22 initiatives, and by DPs, they could be full DPs. So you really never were able to do that, the 3 and 3, or you can go 2 DPs and 4 U22s, and they get like an extra $2 million in GAM that you can spend. And then the other thing that came through these budget rules is and I always compare it to the Castellanos transfer, but the amount of money you're allowed to spend on transfers used to be 1.2 million. Whether you transferred them for 50 million, you could only come back and use 1.2 million to acquire another player through GAM, or maybe it's TAM. I'm not sure. But now that figure is 3. Now that figure is 3 million. Yeah. So you can. So that's 1.8 million more than they've been able to in the past maybe utilize. So, it's significant, I suppose. It's an upgrade.
It is, and it's definitely an upgrade. And I think that this gives New York City. Remember when we spoke to David Lee, he said, they really didn't have, much money to be able to spend, especially because of the fact that, they're pretty topped out as far as DPs and young DPs. So now I wonder, and I was hoping that we could run into David at some point, but I don't even know if he's on the trip, to be honest. If we can ask him what's going on with that. Does he really does he find extra money in this budget? And if so, if he's going to be able to use it?
Well, I think one of the things was, without transferring out someone on a high figure like Magno, that they don't have much operating room. But here's what he said. Now, when we spoke to David, this had not become official, but I think we know 100% that everybody within MLS, a position like his, knew what was going to happen. And so we asked him, I think the way this was worded is, how would New York City FC, utilize the new rules? So here's what he said.
I think until we know the exact specifics of the rule, it's hard to know what strategy we will determine. I think it could change on a year-by-year basis. However, typically if you're signing DPs or U22s, you're committing to long-term contracts. And so, if you have 3 DPs that are under long-term contracts, then you can't go to the 2 DP model, And so, so I think we're going to have to adapt. But it absolutely is. It's one of the things that's on my brain the most right now is figuring out how we're going to, what the model that we will do, what the model that our owners are happy with, are willing to support, and then how whichever strategy we go down, how does that enable us to build a team that's going to be competitive to win? I do think you can win in either of the strategies that will exist in the potential new world if these rules come into place. And so it's just going to be a club by club basis of how you best want to use that investment to build a team that could compete to win.
And that's pretty much what the LAFC, Thorington, sporting director, or is his title sporting director, or is he president? I lose track sometimes exactly who these guys are or what positions they hold.
I've lost track as well.
But he's very much Thorington is very much a player acquisition kind of guy. But he said a lot of the same things, that each club will, can benefit from this, just depending on how they want to utilize it. So we'll, if we track down David at some point and he's willing to go on the record, or maybe not, we'll try to figure out what New York City might want to do.
So let me ask you this: if you were David Lee, how would you handle it?
I would, based on what he has said in the past to us in that interview, and it made a lot of sense because the first player we thought of was Shaqiri, talking about the high-priced, high-profile DPs maybe not providing what you need. But because of their scouting network, if they can find a guy, look, if you're going to DPs, with the exception of like a great central defender who is just a lock that is a ball playing, can win the. I think central defense could be DP material, and we know Thiago Martins is, but whether he's DP level, I think that's questionable. He's been a really good player, but do you spend DP money on a back, or do you do it on the attacking profile players? And if you can find someone that's not a high profile, that is going to contribute, 24 goal contributions a year, 30 goal contributions a year, whether it's a 10 or a 9, then that's who you get. Otherwise, I wouldn't go the DP route. I'd go the U22 initiative route.
See, I give it a little bit of thought, and I think that it's something that David had said a long time ago that sort of stuck with me, that if he had the opportunity, that if he had $20 million to spend, he'd prefer to get $21 million players, and he thinks he would make a better team. And I agree with that. And I agree. So my model would definitely be the 2 and then 4 U22s, and then you still get $3 million in GAM to be able to get other players as well. So you've got these guys. I mean, when you get, you can get a couple of $1 million players or plus $1 million plus players that are going to be better than, 90% of the players in this league. And so now you're spreading that money around much better, helping other areas of the club. Now you're looking at the possibility of having 8 to 9 players within basically DP money, although some have to be bought down. So I would
you're building
that route.
You're building quality depth is what you're doing. That's what you're saying. Like now you're building real quality depth in your team.
Well, it's more than you have 11 starting positions. And you're going to have, 8 to 9 starters that are going to be basically DP level, either be U22 or not, because DP is 700 and change.
Right. And then the club has to make the commitment to spend the overage, whatever that would be, on these players, on the DP side. Yeah. So those were that's an ongoing determination. The thing I didn't know, Roberto, is that the clubs have to determine how they're going to use, what are they going to go 3-3 or 2-4 by August the 14th of this year. So that's pretty interesting. And then after that, it's always, you have to declare before the start of your season each year. So now you have this additional element of how you have to plan, because you have to make a declaration.
I hate that. Give them if you're going to use a salary cap, all these rules that make things even more and more complicated. Just say, the salary cap's $25 million. Go to work. Go get your 30 players. Go get them. Go get 30 players. You have $25 million. If you want to spend 6, like San Jose, or 7 or whatever they're spending, go knock yourself out. Although I hate that, by the way. I would if I was a commissioner, it would be 25. If you needed a salary cap, because I would kill the salary cap or elevate it a lot more. But if you couldn't, okay, let's say $25 million, which is what Toronto spends basically in general. I would say spend it any which way you want. But I would also put a floor, and that is you have to spend 80 to 85% of what the top is. How you spend that money, it's up to you. So you forcing teams to be competitive, which is a model based on the NBA, which I think does it well as far as that's concerned.
I don't think there's a sporting director in the league that would argue with you. So, Roberto, let's go back to 2018 let's go back to 2018 before Patrick Vieira left for Nice when he was the New York City FC manager. And the U.S. men's national team had Dave Sarakin as the interim manager. He was never going to get the permanent post. So there were all these questions about who's the next coach going to be. And I know at one point we brought it up to Patrick, and I remember his response pretty vividly. And he said, "Now is not the right time." So now fast forward, we are now 2024, July the 19th, and in several publications, I guess including Fabrizio Romano, who I suppose is a guy that seems to rarely get these kinds of things wrong when he puts out a report, but he says that both Patrick Vieira and Thierry Henry, very French-oriented search here, I guess, by Matt Crocker, but he said they're both candidates. They both desire to be interviewed for the position. I don't think he really put it that U.S. Soccer is doing it. I think his side of it was that they would like to be asked in for an interview. Now, I stay in touch with Christian Wilson, who's been Patrick's longtime assistant. Everywhere Patrick goes, Christian goes with him. And Christian claims that when Patrick's going from job to job, he knows nothing of the search. This is according to Christian, and I'll trust him on this. So I wrote back, I said, so you just wait for Patrick to pick up the phone and say, Christian, we're going to the States, or Christian, we're going to Nice. And he said, yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wait for Patrick to tell me where we're going next. So no inside scoop from his always assistant, Christian Wilson, who was always a delight when he was here for New York City FC, and who did such a nice thing for me, putting me up in Nice when I went to visit there when they were still on that staff. But I don't know what you think, Roberto. Really, Patrick's best record as a coach was at New York City. 39, 22, 22, a 60% winning percentage, which, nobody has that. That's pretty good. But all these other places, Nice, Crystal Palace, Strasbourg, didn't quite have that level of success. So what do you think?
I'd love to have Patrick. He's not my number one, though. The guy who has also been talked about, and I hope he definitely gets interviewed, and I hope he wants a job, is Pochettino. I think he would be absolutely ideal for the U.S. national team, and he clicks all the boxes. He does speak English, which seems to be the most important thing, which I don't agree with. I think the most important thing is talent and how you're able to deal with players and how you're able to manage them and put them in good positions and get the best out of them. So, I always wanted Marcelo Bielsa to be in charge of the U.S. national team. I thought he would have been fantastic, but they decided that English was more important than talent, so be it. But Pochettino fills all the boxes. I think Vieira basically fills the boxes as well, but I think that Pochettino's pedigree as a coach is superior so far. But of the coaches that I've
what are
heard,
the
as far as the names are concerned, I'm with
let me
Pochettino
ask you,
number one.
Let me interrupt you. You've mentioned Pochettino for like 2 weeks now. Can you classify the traits that you think make him a good national team coach? I mean, it sounds like you've studied this pretty thoroughly, and I know you're a Spurs fan, and he was the coach there for a while. But why Pochettino for you?
Because I think he's able to get the most out of squads that don't necessarily have the best talent. And Spurs definitely, when Spurs Champions League final, they weren't the best team, but he was able to get enough out of them in specific moments to be able to advance into the finals. They wound up losing, mind you, because Spurs. But I think that he did a really good coaching job. I think that Levy made a mistake by allowing him to leave, and Spurs suffered for several years because of that. He's been with other teams, with PSG. He's been now with Chelsea, but their situations, are very, very different. But I still think, and he got Chelsea going. When finally they were able to decide on how to play and all that, and and get everybody in place, and they had 50 players that they're trying to find time for. At the end of the season, that team closed very, very well. I think he's a superior coach, and I think also, the fact that he understands a Latin player, and we have such a wealth of Latin talent in this country, that he would be able to maybe be better suited as far as recruiting that talent as well, and getting the most out of them.
But how about Thierry Henry? I mean, this is interesting. Henry had a disaster at Monaco as a club coach, but and at Montreal he left. I think that was. I think he even said it's just he going through COVID and being away from his family. I think really tortured him to the point where he just felt it was best to leave. So we don't know the full story at Montreal. So his club experience has been less than good. But now he's the U23 French coach. He sat next to Roberto Martinez with the Belgium national team. Not that went all that well, but he is a guy that's got more experience on the international level in coaching. I mean, you could say the U23's Olympic team is not the same, and it's not, but that's where he's at. So you wonder I'll tell you what, if there's not a coach named and the Olympics are progressing and there's still games being played and the French 23s are still involved and still no coach is named, I think you can pretty well bet that Henry's a pretty strong candidate, because I would think they'd want to hire somebody sooner.
I would think so as well. But I mean, this is U.S. soccer, and they've taken their time in naming coaches since the elimination that they suffered in Trinidad and Tobago. So you hope that they're much quicker on this. But I rate Henry behind Vieira. I'll take Vieira over Henry every day of the week.
Okay, I'm not promoting Henry. I'm just saying there's different experience. There's different experience levels for all three of them, and we know Patrick, when he walks into a room, it's immediate respect. Thierry Henry walks into a room, immediate respect. Pochettino walks into a room. He walks into a room with the U.S. men's national team, immediate respect. So that's an important facet, I think, of this job too. Now, would Gareth Southgate, if he walked into that room, would it be as much respect? Because we have a friend who has told us don't discount Gareth Southgate as a possibility here, and part of it is Matt Crocker is of the same nationality and spent a lot of time, not just in England, but also with Southgate at the FA level, partly organizing some of the youth methods and things like that. So they have spent time together. Matt Crocker, by the way, general manager, U.S. Soccer. He hired Greg Berhalter. He fired Greg Berhalter. He hired Emma Hayes. Now he's got the most important decision of his career coming up. And you just wonder. And you wonder if Roberto will just stay frozen for the rest of the show.
I would hate that hire.
You what? Say
there we go. We're
again?
Back.
Hi, Roberto.
That would make me want him to be the coach of the U.S. national team. I would not want him. He's like all the way down.
Hi, Roberto. I'm going to close.
There's nothing he did that made me say, wow.
Okay. We're going to have to close this thing, but I've got 2 points I'm going to make, and we might not even be able to hear from you. First, golf, the Open Championship in Scotland. You got to watch this. If you're a sports fan, anybody here saying, I'm not going to watch golf, I want you to turn on it's called the Open Championship. It used to be called the British Open. These guys, these are the top players in the world. They're playing right along the water in this part of Scotland on this classic course. Winds over 30 miles per hour, so it's altering all their shots. Let me tell you this about golf, Roberto. It's really, really rare that wind alters your putts, like on the green. So they have to account for the wind on their putts as well as the curling and all the stuff. So it's really it's a cool sporting event. So I'm encouraging those out there, and there's many of my friends who say, I'm not watching golf. I get it, but watch this. It's a cool sporting event. And
because
today,
golf
Roberto,
isn't frustrating enough.
That's right. That's right. But it's nice to see pros make bad shots because then it makes you feel better about your game. That's what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure. Misery loves company.
Finally, today, it's July 19th, if you're watching this live, we're exactly 2 years away from the World Cup final, Roberto, and it's going to be held at MetLife Stadium. So here's the FIFA, the screenshot of what FIFA put out. New York, New Jersey. Now that picture, folks, is of MetLife Stadium, full of people to watch a soccer match in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Okay, so the tweet, FIFA World Cup, says New York, New Jersey Stadium. That's what it says, New York, New Jersey Stadium. The level of insult, if you live in New Jersey and have grown up in New Jersey and understand that we've been always overshadowed by New York. And you know, Roberto, I love New York. Nothing better than going into the city and listening to some good jazz at Smalls Club. You know, I'm all for it, man. But Shane, put up the next one. This is the tweet I didn't put out, Roberto, because I thought it was too obnoxious. But I put hashtag New Jersey, not New York. And then I said, who's going to be the first commentator to be brave enough to lead with New Jersey? They can't sack you if you do it once and then say, oops, my bad. And then you do it the whatever way you want to do it. So I challenge any...
Glenn, I just want you to understand this, Glenn. And I know it's difficult. I know it's hard.
There's no difficulty here. The games are being played in Jersey.
Glenn, nobody, the reason the stadium was built isn't because East Rutherford, New Jersey is the center of the world. The center of the world, the most famous city, the greatest city in the world, as I used to announce every night on David Letterman, okay, wasn't Newark, New Jersey, wasn't East Rutherford, okay?
It has nothing to do with what I'm saying.
West New York.
It has nothing to do.
City.
Yeah.
It has everything because none of that exists in the way that it exists if it isn't for New York City.
Oh, that's crap.
It is what it is.
You don't know the history of it. You don't know the history of it. It was the New Jersey Sports and Exposition Authority, led by Robert Mulcahy from Mendham, New Jersey. The New Jersey Devils played in Meadowlands Arena, which was then named Brendan Byrne Arena for the former governor of New Jersey. There's a racetrack. There's a racetrack there, the Meadowlands racetrack, which is completely New Jersey financed. So I don't want to hear about that. You know, it was built because New York is there. That is 100% wrong.
No, I'm not saying that was built. All of that area of New Jersey is built to the way it is because of New York City. That's what I'm saying. Because everybody, 99% of the people that live in that area are commuting into New York City. So New York City has 8.5 million people. Yet at 4 o'clock or anywhere between 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock, we have 16 million people that come in from New Jersey, that come in from Connecticut, that come in from Westchester. And sometimes they come in as far as Pennsylvania. Okay, they all come into New York City. It isn't like New York City is going to East Rutherford, New Jersey. That only happens on Sundays when the Jets and Giants are playing.
But
and then wait 2 hours on the damn George Washington Bridge.
This is like you're arguing the building. The building is in New Jersey.
I understand that
but listen to me.
Listen to me. I know where it is.
The New York Giants and the New York Jets. At least that was their trade name or I have less problem with that because that's who they are. All right, okay, so we'll accept that. You don't have to be called the Jersey Giants and the Jersey Jets. There's a huge tradition there, especially with the Giants. You're not changing their name. We're not. If the Yankees move to frickin' New Jersey, they're not going to change their name to the New Jersey Yankees. You know what I mean? And there was a time where the Yankees were considering, George Steinbrenner was considering coming over. This is the World Cup. It's a one-time event outside of the 1994. Let's go. We should pull up what 1994 said. I guarantee you they didn't call it the New York, New Jersey Stadium. It was Giant Stadium. That's where the games were played. It's now MetLife Stadium, and they're playing East Rutherford. And I dare any commentator to just say New Jersey, leave New York out, or at least say New Jersey first, since that's where the God-blessed stadium is and where the games are going to be played. That's all.
Glenn, I have one more statement to make. I have one more before you decide that you're going to cut me off here and that we got to go because of technical difficulties. Okay, here it is. Okay, what is the metropolitan area called?
It's called the metropolitan area. It includes Connecticut, includes New Jersey.
New York metropolitan area, not the New Jersey metropolitan area.
No, it's not.
The whole area is called the New York metropolitan area.
No, it's not.
Yes.
It's called the metropolitan area.
Yes, it is.
I have never once in my life
is.
said the New York. I don't say the New York
Oh my
metropolitan
God,
area.
the
I said
whole
the
area is
metro.
known as the New York metropolitan area.
Well,
Are you crazy?
so what do you want me to? What do you want me to say? It's in New
That I'm
Jersey.
right.
The World Cup final will be played in New Jersey. God bless everyone to acknowledge that it's in New Jersey. Stop putting the God.
It is in New Jersey, but it's in the
blessed-
New York metro area.
Yeah. New York, New Jersey Stadium. Put that tweet up again, Shane. The first one. No, put mine up. Put mine up, not theirs. The one that put mine up that never went out. I did not put this tweet out. It's only available exclusively on the Sick Podcast. New York, New Jersey Stadium. That's a riot.
Good for you.
What the frick does that mean? That's stupid.
Excuse me? Hello?
It's not even the name of the stadium. God. All right.
Well,
Get it
they're
down.
not going to use any of the names of the stadiums. They're not going to use it because they're all. I think that pretty much every stadium that's going to be used has a commercial name attached to it, except for
Right.
Arrowhead.
Well, that's some commercial name. New York, New Jersey.
Everything else has a commercial name. Arrowhead isn't a commercial name. Geha Field is.
All
but
right.
Arrowhead Stadium
I'm still gonna.
isn't. It's in.
No matter what they
keeping with
call
the
it, I
tradition of
still
the
can't.
Chiefs.
No matter what they call it, I still can't wait to go to the game. All right, let's get out of here because we've only heard half of what you've said.
Yeah, let's hope we get credentials.
Yeah.
After that. now we're screwed because of you.
All right, so let me.
FIFA's listening, and they're going to kill us.
I'll review, including what Roberto and Ariel are doing tomorrow. So on Saturday, we've got New York City at Orlando. It's last game before the break. And airtime is 7:15 for the pregame show for both English and Spanish. Roberto and Ariel will do NYCFC pregame live in Spanish at 6 p.m. And Matty Lawrence and I will do it at 6:45 in English. And the only way to view that now, it's no longer available on Twitter. You have to go to for English, my YouTube page, the New York City FC Facebook page, or my personal Facebook page. For Roberto, you can tune into the NYCFC Espanol X or Twitter site. And no,
it's not
there?
going to be there. Nope. No, it's not. We have the same problem.
Oh,
I
thought
it's going to be on my Facebook page, Roberto Abramowitz Oficial, and it's going to be on my what else? I've got one more. It's going to be on Instagram, and I'll probably send it on my LinkedIn page too because I couldn't get it to work with YouTube, so it wouldn't let me connect. So I'm probably going to put it back on LinkedIn until we can get this whole thing figured out. I'll try to share the link on my Twitter, and we'll see what happens there. And but it's
this is one where our comrades
great.
our comrades have to spread the word because the shows are good. We're there, we've been here with the team, we've been embedded this whole time on the road trip and all these 4 road games. So I think we got a lot for you. Hopefully you picked up on some of it today. Yep. Hopefully you picked up on some of it today. So for Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks. Thank you so much for those of you that hung into some of the technical stuff. And hopefully we'll get a clear signal tomorrow for the live commentary. Have a good night, everybody.
I think it's going to be better at Inter and Coast Stadium, as it's called. By the way, we still have 5 minutes to get a drink at happy hour, so I'm heading out.
All right.
I'll catch
See
you
ya.
later. Shane, bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.